However you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls of the planet and beyond, to Paranormal Now. I'm Alan B. Smith. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portals and tantalizing turnoffs. Tonight on Paranormal Now, our guest is Kathleen Marden to discuss her latest book, Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted. I suspect we'll be leaning in very close to hear everything Kathleen has to say tonight, so I'm really excited about this. It's, for me, we've talked about abductions in so many capacities with so many different guests, but to really hone in on this particular topic, I think, is extraordinarily fascinating, so I think you'll enjoy it tonight as well. As usual, please share your thoughts and experiences with us during or after the show on Facebook, Instagram at Paranormal Now, Twitter at Paranormal_Now. Okay, so Facebook. I'm not sure where I stand with Facebook. I've had an on and off relationship with it for quite some time. So I'm dipping my toes into a website called MeWe. MeWe does not share any of your personal data. In fact, it's totally wired to protect your identity and all your personal information. I've talked to some other people who are making the crossover to MeWe. So I am sort of doing I'm starting to do a parallel posting. I'm mirroring what I do on Facebook on MeWe and see where that goes. Granted, MeWe currently has about 6 million versus, what is it, like 3 billion on Facebook. So I think it's going to take quite some time before people, if not MeWe, some other alternative to Facebook. But honest to goodness, I don't want to be on a platform where you're just bombarded with political ads, or where you see your information popping up. People find out your family members. I don't know. I think it's time that we can learn to be a social network without all of that data sharing. We just do it ourselves. We talk to each other. We share with each other. We don't need an algorithm to control what we see, how we see it, and who sees it. That's just my personal opinion. I know it's going to take a long time to make that transition, but I'm going to give it a go. So if you want to check out the Paranormal Now MeWe page, it's MeWe, mewe.com/join/Paranormal Now, and it'll take you right there. I'd love to get your feedback. How is everyone else feeling about the Facebook thing? Or is that something that you're thinking about jumping ship? I don't know. I keep hearing lots of people say that they would like to. It just seems almost impossible to. But I'm going to give it a go. All right. And as usual, call-ins are available later in the last portion of the last hour of the show. You can all call in using our HD toll-free phone lines, sponsored by the Paranormal Radio app. So add this number to your phone so you can call us hands-free. 855-472-5483. That's 85-KGRA live. So you call in, you'll get to ask our Kathleen Marden your question tonight. And hopefully I can speak clearly enough that I can answer any of your questions that you have for me. Listen for your cue to call in, pose your questions to the guest or myself, and make sure to save the new Paranormal Radio app hotline number 85-KGRA live. And of course, you can go to Paranormal Now's sister program, Coffee and UFOs, on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/paranormalpop. So for many of you, we have been following the UFO Monument Park story for quite some time. And I spoke with Tom Reed. He was going to come onto the show earlier, but last-minute changes, he could not. So I'm just going to give you a quick update on what I understood. And this is straight from Tom Reed. So he said, I was called today by the Massachusetts Bar Association, who are now investigating the attorney who arbitrated the installation of the monument, allegations of unethical practice. 2, an agency has demanded town records involving the installation of the monument through the Freedom of Information Act and the Massachusetts Public Record Law. Agency, quote, Taxpayers for Transparency. Taxpayers for Transparency has demanded Sheffield selectmen release all correspondence to and from their law firm involving Tom Reed or his monument. 3, Taxpay Trans also demanded via the Massachusetts Public Records Law that Sheffield administrators release all correspondence to and from their local reporter Terry Cowgirl, who was used and or worked with the town's selectmen to post the lies in the papers. 4, correspondence has gone out to said journalist Terry Cowgirl, making him aware that we are suing him, filing a lawsuit for blatant malice and libel. A group has formed in support of the monument and even rallied at the Sheffield courthouse last week. Ryan, who can now be seen on a local network, took the microphone to the last town meeting and called Sheffield out in front of their township for slander and unlawful theft of property. And lastly, Judge Kevin Titus and others were at the town meeting and handed out 25 packets of documentation that clearly prove the town is guilty of theft of property and malice. So things are looking good in favor of Tom Reed and the UFO Monument Park, legally speaking. It's just really a shame, again, that we have to go through all this. So, as usual, I'll keep you posted on the latest on that story. But one of the cool stories right now is KGRA and what's happening with the platform here and beyond. So I'm going to bring on Race Hobbs, the producer. Race, how are you?
I'm good. Alan, how are you?
Good. Yeah, so why don't you share with everybody what's going on with KGRA? Because I was fortunate enough that you guys brought me on, I guess just about a year ago, and then started doing live about 6 months ago. And I came in, I feel like, at the best time. KGRA blowing up.
Yeah, it's been fantastic having you here. I want to say that first, and I don't say it enough. It's just been wonderful to see you, come on board. You did your pre-records and you waited on a slot to open. I promised you it would happen. Took longer than I wanted it to, but it finally did. And you haven't looked back. You're a solid radio host, no nonsense every week. You do your job. You work hard for your listeners, and they, as well as I, all appreciate it. And I want to thank you for giving me some time here to come on and talk a little bit about what's been going on with us. The first thing I want to do is take a quick moment to apologize to our listeners. We've had some downtime, some unexpected station drops here in the last 2 weeks. Our internet provider has come in to install an entire new network drive for us, and all the internet that we had before has been stripped out and everything's been redone, and so we've had a couple of snafus, as it were. So for that, everyone, I want to apologize. I know it's a big hassle and it's just enough to piss you right off. And I get that. So, from all of us here, we apologize. And so, we're going to have it all resolved here, just after the Thanksgiving holidays, I hope. So you could count on that. You and I were talking, Alan, about the breakdown here just recently. And I can't wait till this thing really kind of kicks off, because right now we're just getting our feet wet with this. It's a TV show we're doing, about a 20-minute KGRA radio station promotion broadcast that we do on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern, and everyone can find it on our YouTube channel. We've got 5 episodes out now, and it's funny. I go back and watch the first one the other day for the first time, and I think we had such grandiose, lofty ideas on how to do this, and then once we started to try to do it, we realized we had no idea what we were doing. And so you guys are really learning right along with us as to how it's best to execute this video and TV stuff. And we're not scared to do it and learn it in front of everybody. That's exactly how we did radio when we started KGRA. So that's what we're doing. It's a magazine style show that we're doing on YouTube on Mondays. And when we get KGRA TV up and running, which is the KGRA TV platform, will be a selection of channels for everybody to choose from, their favorite hosts and shows and topics. And we are going to cut our show at about 20 minutes. We've been running the last 4 episodes for about 20 minutes long. And then once that's over, we're going to go to the KGRA TV channel, and that's where our memberships are going to be, because KGRA has had to, we've worked real hard to try to figure out how to generate money and raise funds to be able to do this radio and TV stuff for everybody. And, we've always worked with the likes of Stanton Friedman and Linda Moulton Howe and John Burroughs and Richard Dolan and we've had Kathleen on the station so many times I couldn't even count that you're about to talk to, and one of my dearest friends out here, and one of the people that honestly is holding this subject up right in a sea of people who are in it for all the wrong reasons and will say anything and do anything. It's just littered with it, and you have these shining stars like these folks that we work with week in and week out. We're going to continue to do that on TV once TV starts, Alan. So be looking for the engineers and the developers are still writing and coding and getting it all done, and they're closer than they ever have been. And I'm itching to make a major announcement here throughout the holidays for everybody. So, everybody just be patient with us, because we're going to try to bring you guys something, that just like we did in radio, where we made the KGRA sort of a one-stop shop for everybody to, you don't have to surf all over the web to find the information you need. You can kind of just get it all in one place. Well, we want to kind of do that with radio and in TV, in the paranormal and UFO subjects in the future, and the mysteries of the world, conspiracies, and all of that. So that's kind of where we're going. And
it's not just going to be the breakdown, but you're adding, you're expanding your show lineup when you create KGRA TV, when it becomes a subscriber membership.
Absolutely. Just take, for example, if you go to TV for Paranormal Now, every week you'll have Paranormal Now TV episode. Also, you can do the Pop Paranormal and UFOs and Coffee that you do, and that I have yet to be able to do with you, and I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But, you'll be able to upload those episodes to your channel. Your channel will have a Roku app, a custom Chromecast app, an Apple TV app, Android and iTunes apps. You'll be able to see your channel vividly in high definition from all the major streaming applications that really the majors that are out there for your channel. And, and it'll be your channel. There's no threat of demonetization or censorship or, any of that. I'm not knocking, YouTube, but I have increasingly been getting information from Richard Dolan and Jimmy Church and a lot of our friends that L.A. Marzulli has already been demonetized. Over 100,000 subscribers, and then all of a sudden they're not making anything to supplement the work that they're doing, and it hurts. They depend on those funds to help, be able to do what they're doing. So you won't have that problem with this platform.
No, you won't. And I appreciate, I love doing Coffee and UFOs, so I have to get you on. We have to do that together. And more people get to see that program. That would be fantastic. And for the breakdown, if I might make a suggestion, Race, since everyone's making such a big deal about your hat, maybe every week you just put on a completely different hat. Just really stir the waters.
I've had that suggestion several times from some of the folks that watch the program, and I think I would be all for it. Matter of fact, we already had a listener send us a hat that they said that they wanted me to wear. But it's a political hat, and I had to kind of kindly write them back and tell them, listen, I can't put this red hat on or I'll be in real trouble, But I think that's a great idea, as long as it's within the, within the guidelines of what we do every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm looking forward to it. There's going to be a lot of fascinating guests. And like you said, guest hosts that are on the KGRA platform will be doing the video service as well. So I don't know, was there anything else in KGRA coming down the pipeline that you need to share, Race? Or
mainly I want everyone to know that, the podcast world is a big world in broadcasting. And although the KGRA broadcasts live 7 nights a week, All of those shows are podcast formed, and you can find them. You can find Paranormal Now's channel on Spreaker, on Spotify, on iTunes, on iHeart, on all 4 of those major platforms, mobile platforms, and like podcasting standard platforms. You can find Paranormal Now and all the other shows that broadcast on KGRA there. And the archives page that's on the KGRA website will soon be dissolved. We won't even need it anymore because of all of the major places that everyone will be able to, go and download the show and listen to them and take them with you anywhere you go on any mobile device you have, a laptop, a tablet, a phone. They're free to you to download. Thousands of hours of KGRA programming are just available at your fingertips on all of these professional platforms, as well as the YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel, I'm going to be sending out a memo to all of the hosts at KGRA to make sure to start pushing our YouTube channel, because we completely stripped it, we revamped it, and we've started over, and we're back up to just over 2,000 subscribers, but we want to have 200,000 subscribers real soon. We want to get it powered back up and start using it, because we haven't used it in 3 years. And so that's where we're going to be able to find a lot of the stuff that we're going to be doing on the KGRA TV channel. You'll be able to get promos and information in real time by hitting that button and subscribing, that bell and subscribing, and you'll be right there in the know. When we know, you'll know.
All right. Thanks, Race.
Thank you, Alan. I truly appreciate it, and have a wonderful interview with Kathleen.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate Race and KGRA and being a part of this family. I know those of you who listen to these shows every week, you get it. You get it. We know each other. There are other platforms where, shows put their shows up, but they don't really interact. On KGRA, there is a familial aspect to this platform, and I just love it. So many of us have different opinions on these paranormal, ufological, cryptozoological subjects. We have different political views, and guess what? We all get along. I just wish the rest of the world could be like that. All right, so we're going to go on and bring on our guest, Kathleen Marden. She is one of the world's foremost authorities on UFO contact, the author of several books, a featured on-camera commentator, and an international lecturer. She earned a BA degree in social work and worked as an educator and education services coordinator while attending graduate school. She is a practitioner of regression hypnosis and the quantum healing hypnosis technique, and is director of the Sacred Pathway Center for Hypnosis and Spiritual Enlightenment. Her interest in UFOs and contact began in 1961, when her aunt and uncle, Betty and Barney Hill, had a close encounter and subsequent abduction in New Hampshire's White Mountains. She is a generational experiencer. She has been an independent researcher of UFO contact phenomena for more than 30 years. She's an associate of the Mutual UFO Network as director of the Experiencer Research Team, which now has 30 specialists who offer support, non-judgmental listening, and referrals to experiencers. She is also associated with the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Encounters, otherwise known as FREE. Her books are Captured, The Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience, Science Was Wrong, and Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers, with nuclear physicist, scientific ufologist Stanton T. Friedman. And The Alien Abduction Files with Denise Stoner. Her fifth book, Extraterrestrial Contact, and this is what we'll be talking about tonight. Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted, is now available. She is co-author of FREE's Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. Her essays have been published in several additional books. In 2018, she and Dr. Don C. Donderi completed a comprehensive study of 516 experiencers. It was her third major research study on experiencers. Her 50-page report was published in the MUFON 2018 International Symposium Proceedings and is available upon request. She has given on-camera commentary on the Discovery, History, National Geographic, Destination, Science, and Travel channels, and several documentaries. Kathleen has lectured at conferences across the United States and in Canada, Mexico, Brazil, and the UK. Additionally, she has appeared on a video lecture series for experiencers in China. Her website is kathleen-marden.com. Kathleen, welcome to Paranormal Now.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you again.
Yeah, thank you. You know, when you come on, well, I edit everyone's bio to some degree, but yours I decided not to this time because I feel like the last couple of times I edited it down pretty short. But I remember the one time you and Stanton came on Paranormal Now, it was your first time on the show, and the second time he was on the show with me, and I decided to read both of your full bios, and I think it took me like a good 7 minutes.
I bet it would have.
And Stan's was particularly long. I think you have a little more experience with, marketing yourself as far as editing down your bio. So that was fun. And I got a chuckle out of that. So thank you again for coming on. Now, tonight's topic is really interesting. Obviously you've touched on this, starting with your personal, experience with your relationship to Betty and Barney Hill. And then over the years in your research, but this is really sort of hyper focused on, what does one do when they're abducted? I think before we go down that road, Kathleen, I think the most pertinent question is, how do you know if you've really been abducted?
Well, I have to say that it is difficult for a lot of people. People have come to me over the past 30 or so years and said, I don't know if I'm going crazy. I know that this will sound ludicrous to you, but this is what happened to me. These are the memories that I have. And for the most part, I have to reassure them that no, that doesn't appear to me that they have suddenly become insane, that the things that they are telling me seem to line up with what I know about contact with what I like to today call non-human intelligence. That, this seems to be a pretty widespread phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. And when widespread, you mean worldwide?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Outside of the United States, have you spent much time at all speaking with experiencers?
I have when I was in England. Mm-hmm. I have through a translator when I was in Mexico and Brazil. Yes, I have spoken to some.
And are the experiences markedly different, or are all the parallels the same?
They're the same. They're essentially the same worldwide. Even when I was speaking with the people in China, there is a Chinese lawyer who lives in Australia who set this up because she said that the people in China were suffering. They had no one to turn to for information on this topic. And she said their experiences are essentially the same.
Right. So this here's the fascinating thing about this subject. If somebody is an abused child, right, or in an abusive relationship, you go to a psychiatrist or psychologist and you say that, this is what's happening, right? There are therapies, there are methodologies to deal with that, but that is based on the supposition that it's actually something believable. Whereas alien abduction, as much as maybe someone might be open-minded to it, right? It's still more difficult to accept that happened without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that leaves just a barren wasteland of a wasteland. There's nowhere for anyone to go. And I think that's a shame, because obviously I can't personally believe every single person who said they've been abducted, because you have to do your homework, right? And speak to them, get as much data as you can from that experience, and make an objective decision. That's the work that you would do. That's not the work that I would do, right? So, how does someone go and present themselves and say, "This is what happened to me. Please believe me"? How are they to be believed?
Well, I speak to people, and my team is trained to speak to individuals. And if someone has a mental illness, it is pretty easy to be able to detect that is what is going on. And most of these people have either gone off their medication, they are schizophrenic, or they have bipolar disorder, and they're having a psychotic experience. There are others who have personality disorders. And personality disorders, many of these, borderline personality disorder, for example, are characterized by people who have a penchant for lying, to seek attention for themselves, and like to live their lives on a roller coaster. And that becomes obvious pretty quickly that is going on too, because these people are very, very needy, and they don't need just one expert to talk to. They need 20 or 30. Nothing is enough. And so you can point that out as well. But it has been my job for the past dozen years or so to try to find professionals who work with experiencers. And we do have a list of professionals that we can make referrals to. They're in private practice. People who come to us looking for a referral have to expect to pay the practitioner that they're going to.
Sure.
But I think that's very important. There are not enough. Some states have a good number. Other states don't have any, unfortunately. But we do the best we can. I tend to meet therapists who come to UFO conferences, and they'll stop by my table, or they'll have gone to my lecture, or maybe a support group that I was running for experiencers, and then they come to me and they give me their information. All of these people are vetted. We have a vetting team. We vet their credentials. We need to see if they're certified or if they're licensed mental health practitioners in the state, and we need to know that they have malpractice insurance. So we work very hard to make sure that if we make a referral, it is going to be to someone who is familiar with this topic, who believes that it is possible, and is taking patients or clients who are have this mystery about their experiences. They've had a close encounter with a UFO. They've seen non-human entities, and now they're being taken. And they have memories, spotty memories of being on craft, of having non-human entities in their room, of having certain colored lights coming into their bedroom, or maybe they were outside when this first happened, and now it's happening in their home. It's happening to their children as well, that sort of thing. So it's been many years that we have been working to develop these services for experiencers, and we're doing the best job we can. And I always, if somebody has post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of this, I always recommend that they go to a licensed mental health professional who is on the team, or someone who specializes in EMDR therapy. That's the rapid eye movement therapy, where it's best in treating post-traumatic stress disorder, and it will also lift some of that amnesia. So it's sort of, in a sense, like undergoing hypnosis, but you're being healed in the process of doing this. And then you can go on to a hypnotherapist or a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner after that.
Well, you know what? Let's hold it right there. We're going to go to our first break. I think that was a pretty good tease for what is to come. We are talking to Kathleen Marden, and if you yourself, or if you know anyone, family member or friend, who's had an experience like this, I think you'll want to listen to what Kathleen has to say tonight. And of course, go check out her book as well. You can go to kathleen-marden.com. So much more to come. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now. I'll see you on the flip side.
Find the podcast on iTunes, iHeart, and Spotify. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your host. We are speaking with Kathleen Marden about ET contact, ET abduction, what to do in the aftermath of that experience, assuming that it was real. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have, is to dealing with a PTSD of something that's pretty much fantastic in the views of conventional science. Kathleen, we were speaking about EMDR therapy, how that helps with PTSD, and it kind of sort of lifts the amnesia aspect of the event.
Yes.
So how long does it take to go through that, I guess, what is that, 2 or 3 step process?
I'm not certain. I haven't asked the people that I have worked with who underwent EMDR therapy before they came to me. So I really don't know how long the therapeutic process takes. And maybe it's on an individual basis, just like psychotherapy. I don't think that there's any prescribed length of time for psychotherapy. It depends upon how rapidly the person improves, unless the insurance company says, sorry, folks, your time is up.
Yeah, I was going to ask you something, and I was afraid to say it, because I said, if I say it, will that catch on, and is that a bad thing? But I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay.
Would you consider yourself like a kind of like a social worker in this regard with abductees?
Well, my background is in psychiatric social work, but that goes back to my college years. I was an educator for many years, and then I decided to first, in the state of New Hampshire, get a hypnosis certificate. I'm not licensed. I'm not a licensed mental health practitioner. I have a certificate like most hypnotists and hypnotherapists. And then after doing that for a few years and becoming dissatisfied with the process, I decided to take the quantum healing hypnosis technique classes. And it was a long process because it's every session takes an entire day. It's not all hypnosis. There's a lot more to it than just the hypnosis session itself. And what separates that from typical hypnosis is that everyone will come in and they're going to spend 3 to 5 hours just talking to me about their entire life. And if they've had contact experiences, they'll be talking to me about that as well. They'll come to me with 10 to 15 questions, and I am going to ask those questions to their higher self. That's part of the quantum healing hypnosis technique, practice that is not traditionally used in hypnotherapy or hypnosis.
What is the higher self?
The higher self is, you might call it the soul. These people, I have a 2-hour hypnosis session with them, and then I ask to speak to the higher self, and the higher self grants me permission. And people speak to me then in the third person. And the higher self answers the questions that person has. And also that person comes with healing requests. And then I ask the higher self, I do a body scan, and we go from one part to the other, starting with the crown chakra. And we go through the chakras in the body. And I have the higher self stop wherever there is a problem. And then the higher self lets me know when the healing has been accomplished. And we move to another part.
What's the signal when it's saying to you, or is the person speaking to you directly saying, okay, we're moving on to this?
The person is speaking to me, and sometimes in a different voice. The most amazing session that I have ever had was a woman who is not even from the United States, and she is a well-known psychic and healer in the country that she was from. And I had the opportunity to work with her, and she had many problems through her torso, with her abdominal problems, heart problems, and so on and so forth. And she was lying on the bed. There was a sheet over her. Her hands were on top of the sheet beside her. Yet I could see movement under those sheets, as if there were hands that were actually healing her. It was the most amazing thing I've ever said. And people who've had sessions with me write back to me and tell me that they have been healed. Sometimes it takes a while. I worked with one woman who had arthritis in an ankle. It had been giving her a lot of pain for several years, and nothing helped. She was getting injections, and since I did the session with her, it took a few weeks of continuing to listen to the healing part of the hypnosis. Yet, now she is completely healed. No more pain in that ankle. I've worked with another person who needed knee replacement surgery and possibly hip replacement surgery as well. After a session with me, the woman went home. Within a week, she no longer had any pain. She had several other conditions too, and they are clearing up. I had another woman who came to me with rheumatoid arthritis and psoriatic arthritis that she developed immediately after she was on craft with a human-type entity. Well, there were 4 of them, actually. And she, we believe, got too close to a panel on a wall that they told her not to touch or she could be harmed. But it was so beautiful. She kept wanting to touch it. And she got too close to it, I believe. I think that is what happened. But she developed these autoimmune disorders, psoriatic arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. A week after I worked with her, she was fine. No more arthritis.
Wow, that's advanced healing, assuming that that's, the higher self itself did the work, I guess, right? Is that how it works?
That is how it works, or, God consciousness, maybe something. It's not me. I'm only facilitating the process. I've learned how from the brilliant deceased woman now, Dolores Cannon, who developed the method over a 40-year period. But it's quite remarkable to me. And I have to say there have been a few people who have not been completely healed, but there has been some improvement in the condition.
Right. How much is that, do you think, just mind over matter? Meaning your approach works for those people because they believe?
I really can't answer that question.
Okay.
I find that the people who benefit the most are those who can go into the deepest level of hypnosis. They're very good hypnotic subjects. And, maybe that is what it is. But personally, I don't have the answer to that question. I only know that it seems to work. And that's all that I really care about. And I think that's what they care about, too, is that it works.
But it's markedly different than the traditional hypnosis therapy you started with.
Yes, it is.
Likes of John Mack and Bud Hopkins, their work was fairly effective, but it was mostly recovery, right? How much of that was therapeutic, and what can you or have you taken from that?
Well, it wasn't therapeutic. I underwent hypnosis with Bud Hopkins, and information is revealed, and then you generally have to go to a support group and work through it in a support group. Dolores Cannon developed QHHT hypnosis as a past life regression technique, but I can also use it for this lifetime as well as going to a past life, if this is what experiencers would like to do. Many of them are curious about whether or not they had contact with non-human intelligence in a past life, and many find out that they did as well. So that's interesting as well. And I do use a forensic hypnosis technique, which I used when I was doing traditional hypnosis, because I don't want to lead anyone to confabulate. But still, we have the healing component too. So it is a much kinder, gentler process than traditional hypnosis. Okay. And people come out feeling very good. In fact, recently I worked with Calvin Parker. I don't know if you're aware of that. Calvin Parker and from the Charlie Hickson Abduction in Pascagoula, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yes, well, Calvin has recently come forward and has been speaking about his experiences. And I was asked to go to Mississippi and to do a day-long session with Calvin Parker. And I think that it was very helpful to him, too. He was able to retrieve additional information to put things into perspective, and he was able to do it being completely relaxed and feeling at ease while he was doing it.
Right. I think that's the trick, because otherwise your self-defense mechanisms go up, your ego goes up to protect you from that, reliving that trauma, right?
Yes, and if you relive that trauma in real time, it can cause additional trauma. It's very, very important to work with a licensed mental health professional. And there are some who do work with experiencers in hypnosis. So that's important. I'm thinking of Dr. Benjamin Simon, who worked with my aunt and uncle, Betty and Barney Hill, over a 6-month period. And he reinstated amnesia at the end of each session. There was a good reason for doing that. That reason was that some of the trauma that they underwent was so great, the emotional experience was so troubling, that if they remembered all of that at once, it could have increased their level of trauma, according to Dr. Simon. So there was a second reason, too, so that they couldn't share information and contaminate one another's story. But he was very careful about the emotional impact that their encounter had on them.
What are the symptoms of someone who has been abducted? When they come to you or go to a therapist, what are they looking for to validate for themselves as the therapist that is indeed what happened to them?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I only work with people who have conscious memory of abduction, of finding themselves on a craft, of having seen a craft up close, of having missing time. There has to be a constellation of different characteristics. I'm not going to take somebody who wants to come to me and say, well, maybe I've been abducted, but I don't know for sure. I can't remember anything. I'm not going to go there, because I want dates or at least time frames. I can narrow it down to a specific date through hypnosis. But and I want to make sure that we're getting to real memories. I don't want to give anybody a fantasized, confabulated memory. To me, that would be unethical.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you that too. How much responsibility do you feel? Isn't that a lot to weigh on you?
Well, I have the responsibility to help to facilitate truth finding in the process that I use, and to do this confidentially with individuals. I am not going to repeat anything they've said unless they've signed a release form giving me permission to do so. And, it's just a confidential kind of therapeutic process. Right. And that's what is important. I want them to leave my office feeling that something positive has been accomplished in their lives, and that they can go on with understanding. And, if the going does get tough, if they have a lot of blockage, I can use techniques to overcome the blockage. But if they just say, I can't go on, I don't want to go on, I'm not a licensed therapist, as I said before. I am not going to push them emotionally, because if I push that button, it could cause additional trauma for them. And that is the responsibility of a licensed psychotherapist.
Right. I suppose sometimes you sort of have to curtail your own curiosity, right, when you're going down a certain road to be safe. Yes, that's true. That I do have to be safe with people. Right. There is a possibility, and I want to find out more about what changes occur to people who have had these experiences after the abduction, but in particular, after they've been through therapy. Has anything been unlocked? But before we get to that, we'll talk about that in the second hour. What if you go in and you find out that you thought you were abducted, but you weren't? Well, that has happened in the past. And I do the work with them, and I just say, well, I used all of the techniques I used to unblock any lost memories.
Apparently that light that came into your room didn't have beings who took you, or apparently that UFO that was close to you didn't take you that time. But I will offer, if you want to come back again, then we can try this again.
Sure.
And I'll give them post-hypnotic suggestions to unlock any repressed memories that they might have. And then they can come back and maybe we can get to more information if I wasn't able to break through blockages.
Well, what do you recommend to someone who uncovers something that's not an abduction? Do you have a list of psychiatrists that you would refer them to as well?
I don't make the referrals to psychiatrists.
Okay.
I do on the list that I have, the referral list.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a list of clinical psychologists, psychiatric social workers, and there are a couple of psychiatrists too.
Yeah.
But what I have, in fact, actually made a referral one time to someone to see one of these people. Yes, but I'm working with people primarily who are in my state or who fly in. Sure. And so I'm not working with people across the country.
Right. But what if one of these people uncovers something uncomfortable, but it's not an abduction? Do they say, Kathleen, I just feel comfortable with you. Can I stick with you for a while? Or do you feel like that's out of your purview?
Well, let me give you an example.
Okay.
I was working with a woman who believed that when she was a young girl, she was at a nighttime party with a group of adults. They were all drinking and dancing. The children were outside playing. This was years ago. There was an outhouse. And she went into the outhouse. And then she sort of lost her memory. And when she came out, it was dark and all of the children were gone from the yard. They were inside. There was no UFO. I doubt that there was any kind of abduction that took place from that outhouse. I suspect that she might have been molested.
Okay.
And that she repressed that memory. I would not push further to take her to that because I didn't want to do any harm. I didn't want to unlock that memory. That's not within what I do. So, no, I wouldn't take someone to a rape, to some kind of abuse, to live through that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I just thought, if somebody feels comfortable that they might ask you to do that, like you find a friend, right? And you feel, I feel comfortable opening up and talking to you about this thing. Can they continue to share with you in a friendship aspect, or do you just say, I really think it's best that you talk to somebody else?
Well, that hasn't happened. I've had a friend who wanted to talk to me about something else, so I really don't know how I would react. I did have a woman who came to me and said that her daughter is distressed because she thinks she was sexually abused when she was a child and wanted me to do hypnosis with her. I would not do that. I told her that she needed to see a licensed mental health professional for that because that's not the kind of work I do. It brings back memories of back in the 1980s when Elizabeth Loftus is the psychologist who introduced the false memory syndrome work that was being done academically. And it brings back memories of the daycare centers where children claimed that they had been then sexually abused. And there were children who, one little boy testified that he had gone out on a boat trip with the daycare children, and that the daycare workers were throwing the children overboard with sharks. Swimming around the boat, and how the little boy had to jump in over and over again and save his classmates and put them back on the boat. That is what can happen to memory.
Oh my gosh.
It's very dangerous. It didn't really happen. But
Right.
some of these people ended up being convicted nevertheless.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. That's so problematic and troublesome. We are talking to Kathleen Marden, and we will come back on the other side and continue this exploration of what happens to somebody who either thinks or did have an alien abduction experience. When we come back on the other side, we'll ask Kathleen, have certain abilities or changes been unlocked through the therapeutic experience or just post-abduction experience? This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now. Thank you all for tuning in tonight, and stay with us for the second hour. And in the last half hour, we will open up the Paranormal Radio app hotline for you to call in and ask your questions of myself or Kathleen. And that number is 85-KGRA-LIVE, 855-472-5483. We'll be right back.
Find the podcast on iTunes, iHeart, and Spotify. KGRARadio.com. This is Paranormal Now.
Lost in a bad way, cost me my family. Chaos around me, can't hear my heart say, hey, that's the wrong way. Hey, that's the wrong way. Hey, that's the wrong way. That's the wrong way. You're lost in a bad way, starting to let go. Gone too far the wrong way. Can take it all back now. You're lost in a bad way. I've gotta let you go. You're supposed to be so close to me. I'm mostly that goes to me, yeah. And if you chose to see the most in me, you'd hopefully get close to me again.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. Taking us out of the break was Lost in a Bad Way by Septembrio. They sponsor our music every week. That is Septembrio with a Y.com if you want to find out more about them and check out all their latest works. There's another album coming out in a couple of months or so, part 2 of their Nightmares series. So it's pretty cool. Check it out. All right, so we've got an hour here to really cover quite a bit. So if you have questions for Kathleen or myself, you can call in at 85-KGRA-LIVE. If you've had an abduction experience or contact experience, call 855-472-5483 if you have a question that maybe Kathleen can address. And of course, you can join us in the KGRA chat room as well. So Kathleen, when someone is going through the therapeutic the therapy, as it were, do they discover any unexpected changes or abilities in that process?
I can't say that they develop new abilities because they have undergone hypnosis. The abilities seem to be a product of the experience itself, the being taken to craft being taken to a non-human environment and brought back. Experiencers have all of the characteristics that near-death experiencers have. And, for example, they become more psychic or intuitive. They become more spiritual. Among the abductee group, in the most recent survey that I worked on, and it was more than just a survey, Dr. Don C. Donderi administered the American Personality Inventory to people who took part in 516 who took part in the study, 175 who completed the American Personality Inventory. The American Personality Inventory identifies those who have alien abduction syndrome, which means they have the secret knowledge and they have the emotional signature of having been taken to craft by non-humans. There's also a separate group, and those are the simulators or the wannabes that are a completely separate group. They have a lot of knowledge, but they don't have all of the knowledge that these abductees have. And then we have the group of people who you might meet off the street who don't have a lot of knowledge about either one, but who might just take part in a study in order to skew our statistics so that they can say, ha ha. So you sometimes get that, but we put in quite a few protections against that so that we were able to identify the hoaxers who came in and tried to skew our results on our study. But what I want to say is that among the abductee group, 86% had become more spiritual, 65% more psychic, 91% empathic, meaning not in the bad sense. It's not that they have depression or anything like that. It's that they can sense the emotions of another person as if they were their own. They can feel it in their own bodies. And this is something that's very important to these non-human entities. They are attempting to alter the human genome. They are attempting to alter the humans that they take, and they take these humans along genetic lines. You cannot harm someone if you are empathic because you feel their pain. And this happens to a very high percentage. 81% of the experiencers in the group, 91% of the abductees in our study. They also have a different world view. They no longer see themselves as part of just a family or a community or a nation. They see themselves as part of something much larger. And this is true of near-death experiencers, too. I have hypothesized that might take place because people, experiencers, abductees, are taken through solid surfaces. And say when they're taken from their homes through windows that are closed or through walls or ceilings, there is an alteration in their atomic structure. I've talked to physicists about this, and they say that everything theoretically has a vibrational frequency. So if what they have to do is they have to alter the vibrational frequency and the phase. And if they have altered the frequency and the phase, then atoms can interpenetrate. And it makes me think that when these atoms become so energized and the body comes apart, the soul or the consciousness departs from the human on a thread, just like it does in a near-death experience. And then it comes back together again. And so my hypothesis is that this occurs when experiencers are taken and might lead to these changes. But I also know from the open-ended questions on both MUFON's experiencer research study and the Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation's experiencer research study that the extraterrestrial entities or non-human intelligences tell experiencers that they are concerned about Earthlings and that they are attempting to alter our DNA so that we will be upgraded, that we will be a different kind of human, that we will be kinder, we will be gentler. They're concerned that we have reached a point in our technological development where our technology and our spirituality are out of sync. And as a result of this, they say they've seen it on other planets, that we could end up destroying life on this planet through nuclear war, for example. And this is something that they're very, very concerned about, according to our studies.
I have a question from the chat room from Neutron. It says, Kathleen, do you personally believe the entities abducting people are actually from here and appearing interdimensionally, or are they from other planets, as they lead abductees to believe, it seems, for the most part?
Well, you know, that's a very interesting question, and I've pondered that, and I've tried to find as much evidence as I can. And through my own research, as I said, I don't go to other people's research. I do my own research from scratch. And what I have to say is that it is quite apparent that these entities are interdimensional. Now, are they coming here from another dimension, which is nearby, or is it that they have interdimensional technology? Or are they from our future coming back? As far as I'm concerned, all three could be possible. There are different types of entities coming. It does seem that, and from what we've been told, there are fifth and sixth dimensional entities who are coming to this planet. I've also worked with a fascinating case, and this was a case that MUFON investigated, very compelling case, where it was the abduction of three highly competent individuals. There was a lot of evidence, including evidence that a camera that was at a distance and left running took of these non-humans. And I'm just looking at one of the photographs right now on my computer of an entity that appears to be insectoid in nature, but on that craft, the person that I did QHHT hypnosis with ended up with a group of 4 human-looking entities. Their eyes were larger than human eyes. They all had kind of long, pulled-back, light brown hair. They were very similar to what you think of from your 1950s Space Brothers group, the blue suits. And the women dressed in beautiful iridescent clothing, very kind. And they told her that they had once lived on this planet, on planet Earth, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and that there had been an environmental collapse, and they had the technology and the means to move on, that they did find another planet that they moved onto that isn't nearly as nice as Earth. In the way they described it. It had kind of like two suns, and it was dark. Quite a lot of the time, or not dark, but just kind of like dusk. And I think it was two suns. Maybe it was two moons. I'm not sure. But anyway, this group now travels through space. Most of the time, it has space stations set up that it goes to. They took her to one of these while they recharged, and they gave her the information that they are able to hop through time and space. They say that they come here from time to time to assist in our development, to check up on us. They mean no harm. They're not taking anything from this planet. And they told her that they had known her through all lifetimes, which is quite interesting to me.
Wow. So we're talking about something so far advanced, it's almost incomprehensible when you're talking about, jumping from timelines, or time for them, I guess, doesn't really exist.
Well, they say that they can live to be 800 years old on the average, so I don't know about that. If they're keeping track of the years that they live, maybe this group is keeping track of time as well. They say that the reason they can live that long is that they replace body parts.
Well, I mean, we're not far from doing that. We're actually in the early stages of growing.
We are.
That's right. Yeah.
We are. So, I don't know the answer to that question, but they just said they can jump through space and time.
Right. Well, I have to wonder if you're so advanced, because I would imagine for us, in a few hundred years, we probably will be able to live as long. Well, live almost infinitely, without accident. I think that we will unlock the key, or we'll find the key to long life and longevity and immortality. But if you're in an accident, something happens, then you need to replace that body part. That will always be something. Trauma is something that will always be there for any living beings. But if you can live that long, perhaps, like you said, if there's that higher self, maybe 800 is like a comfortable time for them, and they're like, okay, it's time to move on to the next plane. Yeah,
could be. But I have to tell you, what they told her is that since they live that long, they have to put a strict control on reproduction. So right, we would have to do that too. Otherwise, the planet would become heavily overpopulated.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I wanted to ask you another question in reference to what you were speaking of earlier, and how people get these changes, and empathy being one of them. And you had mentioned, I wonder, can you genetically alter someone so that they become more empathetic, or what is the cause of that change? Do you have any indication from the discussions that you've had?
Well, that's a good question, but one of the questions we did ask has to do with generational contact, and we asked if other family members had these characteristics, and they said yes, they did, that the mother or the father or the grandparents had these characteristics as well. But then we have to ask the question, has this been generational for that many generations? Were the grandparents or the great-grandparents taken, but simply didn't know what was happening? And is this what caused them to become empathic and psychic? Or, because being empathic is a form of being psychic? Or is it simply the process of being taken to craft. I don't know if it's genetic or if it's part of this process or if it's a combination of the two. There are so many unanswered questions. And, we keep looking for the answers. We keep searching, and that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Not one of us is going to have all of the answers.
There are so many things we would like for ourselves. We would like to see ourselves evolved in a number of ways, many of which are near magical, right? We can all imagine, like, maybe one day we can move things with our mind like Jedis do. Or do you think that there is the possibility that they're sort of maybe incrementally taking us down a path where those abilities that seem to be granted become more and more impressive?
I do think that extrasensory perception is one thing that's being developed. Telepathic communication is being developed, and some experiencers who have been taken since they were children talk about how they have been placed in a circle. They're seated on the floor in a craft. There are also hybrid children there and other human children as well. And there are orbs. And they use their minds to make these orbs buoyant and to send them from one child to another using their minds. So this is a game that's being played with children on craft.
Fascinating. And that's similar to some psychedelic experiences that I've heard people have claimed to see when they come back from those odd experiences. So we're going to open up the lines now. So if you have a question for Kathleen Marden, the number is 855-472-5483. That's 85-KGRA live. And we're going to take our first call now, Kathleen. So Malcolm from Florida, you are on the air. Welcome.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Question for Kathleen.
I certainly do. A kind of fundamental background here. These beings, whatever they are, seem to have complete and total control over us by mental telepathy. Why should we believe a blessed thing they tell us?
Well,
hello?
I don't know if I can answer that question.
Are you impressed by their technology? Are you impressed by their values? Why do you believe them? I kind of wonder. It just seems like a lot of baggage to me. I don't doubt that you've had the experience, man, because I've had some strange experiences too. I just doubt the conclusion you're making.
Do you doubt the intention of these beings? Is that what you're saying?
I think every sentient, self-aware being is going to have its own self-interests at heart. Mm-hmm. There may be, some chivalry somewhere in the universe, but I don't think we're seeing it here on Earth.
Right, Kathleen, do you think that it's fair to doubt the good intentions that is often reported by these beings?
I know that many people are cynical about this, and they believe that all experiencers actually have Stockholm Syndrome and that they have grown to love their abusers. And this is the reason that they have taken a positive view toward these non-human entities. So, that is one perspective. But I also know many individuals, and this, I'm speaking with a voice of about 5,000 people who have taken part in all of our studies. One of the questions we ask is, if you could make this stop today, would you? 71% of the experiencers said, no, I don't want it to stop. 75% of the abductees in MUFON's study, and when you go to the Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation study, it's 85% who want this experience to continue. So people are getting something out of this. They feel that they're being cared for, that this is something positive that is happening. They also know that they are helping at least one species who is no longer able to reproduce on their own, and they need help from humans. And many of these humans say that they're willing to help. Now, I have to say, early on in their lives, they did not view it this way. They took a very negative view of all of it. They were traumatized. They wanted it to stop. But as time went on, and they're now in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, or older, they are viewing it differently because they've overcome their fear. They're not being subjected to the kind of experiments they were when they were earlier, and these entities are now communicating with them. And so it's a different sort of thing that is occurring.
Why couldn't they have behaved that way in the first place?
I'm sorry, but I can't answer that question.
Well, I think one way to look at this is if you were doing a trial study of any sort of drug or therapy technique, if here on Earth, very earthly, let's say, okay, and if the vast majority goes out with a positive experience, science would take the stance that, this is generally a good technique for most people. So in this case, if most people are coming out of an alien abduction experience feeling good about it, I guess that leans one to not conclude, but suspect that there is something good happening here. But Malcolm, I can totally appreciate your point of view as well, because
I heard Whitley Strieber the other night say that he's still suffering and in pain from the anal probe that the aliens inflicted on him in 1980. If they're such great people, why don't they heal him up for the damage they caused?
Right. He needs to ask for healing, because experiencers who have been asking for healing are receiving it.
Malcolm, do you have any other questions at all?
Well, I could talk about my experiences with dolphins, but perhaps some other night. I'll just say that dolphins are telepathic too, and I think we could learn a lot from them if we worked on it.
All right, absolutely. I agree with you. There's something very special about dolphins. Malcolm, thank you so much for calling in.
Good thing. So long.
Have a good night. That is interesting. That has come up on occasion, psychic animals, dolphins, that sort of thing. Can any of these abductees actually get psychic connections to animals or empathic towards animals in particular, not just human beings?
I know some experiencers who Barbara Lamb introduced at the International UFO Congress Conference a few years ago believe that they are hybrids and work with animals. Everyone that she introduced is a healer in some way, and some of them are able to work with animals.
Okay, so there is a change in that regard too. Mm-hmm. And I have to ask this question, because you hear of, in the real world, people get into an accident or what have you, and they can suddenly play the piano. Has anything like that occurred after an abduction experience?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So no virtuosos, abduction. Got it. All right. Well, what about yourself personally? I mean, you've been studying this for decades. How have you changed? Do you feel like you're a better person in any particular way just by virtue of what you do?
I do think that I'm a better person than I used to be. I think that I'm probably more caring. I'm a better researcher than I was years ago. I've worked with PhD academics on these studies, and it's been very gratifying. I've learned a great deal of information from them. And so, yes, I'm very pleased with the career choice that I made 30 years ago to devote my time to this study. I don't know where I'd be today if I continued on the path that I was going as an educator. As I said earlier, I studied psychiatric social work, but my first husband was studying for his doctorate in the philosophy of psychiatry at the University of Cincinnati. And I tried to get a job there in psychiatric social work at the psychiatric hospital, and they wouldn't hire me because I was this little 5-foot-tall farm girl, kind of young and cute, and they thought that I would be harmed. So as fate would have it, I ended up teaching in the inner city instead, because I was able to get a job there, and ended up, of course, that was dangerous too, but I ended up doing graduate work in education. And although I loved doing that, this is much more stimulating, much more interesting to me. I love the academic studies that we are doing with experiencers, and as I said, we've in the 3 studies that we've done, we have about 5,000 experiencers who have taken part in this. So we've gotten a much greater grasp on, I think, what's going on than we would have if we were just having contact with experiencers through hypnosis or something like that.
Yeah, it's amazing how far ufology has come in just the past, 5-7 years. So much has been accomplished by researchers like yourself, and people are really spreading their wings and getting work done that just wasn't there before. You had people like Stanton Friedman who did the hard research, looking at cases in particular, but what you're talking about are large-scale studies, and that is a fairly new phenomena in the field, and I absolutely love that, and it's very exciting to be a part of that time. We're going to go to our next call. That is Ron from Minnesota. Ron, how are you?
Hey, Alan, how you doing? Hello, Kathleen, and great show tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy too.
And I like Thanksgiving because it's one of the holidays that really there's no symbolism as far as it's one certain culture. It's Happy Thanksgiving for everybody because, it's not one particular, like Christmas is, American or what, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, so happy Thanksgiving to you and to everyone else out there that's listening. But the topic that I've been talking about on my own station and my own show, I have a little roundtable discussion I do on Friday nights, and we talk, and we have a great discussion about all kinds of crazy stuff. A lot of it, probably most of us might not believe it, but we have thoughts about it. And some of the things that I've been thinking about lately are the possibility of what I call eternal existence. And I think I talked to Alan a little bit about this. I don't know. I talked to him in private chat about it a little bit. But the idea of eternal existence is that we come from there with God. He puts us in his body, and we live for, we'll say, 100 years. Let's keep it simple. Okay? We live for 100 years, and then we go on to the next level, wherever that might be. Now, according to certain writings, our body goes back to the ground, and our soul goes back to God who gave it. Okay? So, then our energy signature is an eternal energy signature. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to make a point. I'm not trying to argue with anybody's personal opinion or anything like that, or trying to debate what someone else might be teaching. I'm not any education in college or anything like that. But I do have just some personal thoughts of my own, and this is one of them. So I don't know what you think about that. And that's how I think we have thoughts of, oh, I remember that, or never been there, And then you know things. I'm almost 60 years old, but I know things that are a lot older than 60 years old. You know what I mean?
I see. So something like the Akashic Records.
Yeah.
We have this eternal self. How does that relate to the alien abduction experience? Do you think that there's a connection there?
I think that some of that could be maybe us trying to connect with them, or them trying to find out where we are in line. So, and meaning as a whole, as a race, where we are in line. If it's us connecting with them, then you mentioned telepathy before. I believe that happens a lot. Okay. And then, so I think that they communicate with us telepathy, but we don't know how to respond, and we get freaked out, like, oh my gosh, what's happening?
Right.
Whereas if we took the time to relax, and like what Kathleen was just saying about being afraid, you can't be afraid. If you're afraid it's going to go away, you're not going to be able to connect. Okay? You have to relax and accept. Yeah, you have to relax and accept and realize what exactly is going on. And then if it can benefit you, then move forward and communicate, and who knows what will come about in that situation.
Right. So, Kathleen, do you think that they're helping us to become more attuned?
I think that they could be. I was particularly interested in you callers' comments about past lives, and what happens when we move beyond the physical body at death. And there have been many scientific studies on near-death experiencers, and also on children who have come back and have knowledge of having had a previous life on this planet, which have been very, very interesting. So it appears that we have quite a bit of confirmation that indeed we do have a consciousness that survives the death of the human body and comes back time and time again to live out some kind of learning process that the soul is going through. And I find that study extremely interesting, as interesting as the study on ET contact, because, and Dolores Cannon wrote about this quite a lot, but with the people that I have worked with who are experiencers, when they have gone back to a previous lifetime, either they had contact with non-humans then, some were non-humans in another lifetime and have described what life was like in that non-human environment, and some have known these non-human entities throughout all lifetimes.
Ron, thank you so much for coming in, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ellen, and thank you again, Kathleen, and have a great day on Thursday. All right. Have a good night.
Okay, take care. All right, so we're going to go on to our next caller, Laurel from Cincinnati, coming up in just a moment. Laurel, are you there? Are you on the air?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, welcome to Paranormal Now. Do you have a question for Kathleen Marden?
Yes, I have a question that I have never heard anybody ask. I've been around a long time, since I was born in 1947, and I've had an outer body experience, so I know I'm a spirit in a body. And bodies have functions. And I never hear, I just wonder about these people. Do they eat? Do they use the bathroom? Do they have to take showers? Do they have to do the wash? You know, I never heard anybody say, in all my 72 years, I have never heard anybody ask this question, and nobody ever bring it up. So I want to know, do they use the bathroom? They have to take a shower? Do they have to do things we have to do with our body?
I can tell you that some of this information has been brought up, and some researchers do have that information, but that is something that we are not supposed to talk about, because if we know the specific way, for example, that these entities eat. And I can't tell you that, because then I would be revealing secret information that is used to determine whether someone has actually had contact with that type of entity.
So, Kathleen, that's part of the screening process.
That's correct.
Okay, whether someone is legit. Sure, then that's the same technique that's used in criminology and detective work as well. So that makes absolute sense. But is there any sense that they do anything like if I don't ever have to do a wash load again for the rest of my life, I would love that.
Me too.
Are there things like that people have reported that stand out, that are just almost mundane, that you've heard of, that you can share, that's not a part of the screening?
Yeah. The only individual that I know of who has been into the parts of craft where they do the work that they do, the sleeping, the personal entertainment, the dressing in clothing, and all of those different things, is Susie Hansen, who is reputed to be a highly credible woman from New Zealand. I have spoken with her. Stanton Friedman also interviewed her and told me that he believed that she was credible. And she did talk about those things, and but she believes that she has a dual soul connection. She was told that she has two souls, a human soul, and that a non-human entity's soul was inserted into her body when she was born. And so she does have knowledge that the rest of us don't have. And she talks about, I think, a kitchen, a place where they eat. She's talked about a number of different things, implements that they use. I don't know about showers. I don't remember ever reading about showers. She did talk about sleeping quarters.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess they need to sleep just like us and recharge.
Could be.
Well, if they have a physical body, it has to be, it has to rest. It's part of it.
Well, everything on this planet does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's part of that. Well, I was just wondering, because I hear all this stuff, and it's, it's been like, is this a fantasy or what? I mean, nobody ever talks about the normal things like that. So at least I know now it does exist, and I'm glad to hear it, and I hope they all do what they need to do and be good.
Susie's book is called The Dual Soul Connection. Her name is Susie Hansen, and she wrote the book with Dr. Rudy Shield, who is a friend of mine, astrophysicist, retired from the Harvard-Smithsonian Astrophysics Laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Laura, do you have any curiosities? Or?
No, that's been my question for about 30 years now. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night and happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Yes, same to you. Have a good life. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. That is interesting, Kathleen. So let me ask you, now that I have some inclination to your screening process, is it irresponsible for myself or other people to ask those questions moving forward? Because you don't want to disseminate, right, certain information out there?
Right. There is certain information that we have that we've been asked not to disseminate.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we did, then we would have no screening process whatsoever.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Now, if somebody comes on the air, they're an alleged abductee, and they share their experience, I can't edit out what they say. I can avoid asking those specific kind of questions. But I'm sure sometimes those things do get out there.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, that's good then. Then that's good. So far, so good. Okay, so we have a question from the chat room from Libertas. What, if any, involvement do you feel the military plays in abductions?
That was a question that we asked on our studies. Free did, and also the Mutual UFO Network did. And what we discovered is about 20% of the individuals who took part in our study said that they believed that they had contact with ETs and also the military, sometimes working together, or sometimes someone that appeared to be a member of the military would come and get them, sort of break into their house and take them after an abduction experience. And so then we asked, were you able to identify the uniform? And there was a lot of confusion there. So, the question I have, and David Jacobs has asked that question too, is, are these actually human-looking non-human entities? They have the human appearance. They behave like members of the military, but they are part of this abduction process. Are they some kind of covert military force? Who knows? I mean, I don't have the answer to that. There's a great deal of speculation about it, but I don't think that anyone knows for certain. And we weren't even able to get many people who could identify the uniform.
Kathleen, we only have a few minutes left, and I want to get this last question in. So how does one deal with an ongoing abduction, or other techniques that they can use to stop it, to bring it to an end?
Yes, absolutely. My book, Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted, is a comprehensive guide for experiencers of abduction and contact with non-human intelligence. And I devoted an entire chapter to what to do if you want it to end, with a lot of information about how you can cause your problems for yourself with negative entities, and about a dozen suggestions on how to make it end. They've worked for some people. I can't guarantee they'll work for you, but at the end of every chapter, too, we have a workbook for people to use, for experiencers to help, just to get the answers that you're looking for. We have coping strategies in the book, a lot of stories that we tell about our personal experiences with non-human people who have contact with non-human entities, cases we've investigated. I even talk about what you need to know if you want to go public, or what happens if you want to write a book. It is absolutely a comprehensive guide. So a lot of information here.
Yeah. For those out there who really are steeped in ufology, this is a good read for all of those people listening. Kathleen, thank you so much for coming on. And if you want to find out more about Kathleen's book, go to Kathleen-Marden.com. And if people want to reach out to you directly, Kathleen, which email or how do they contact you?
They can go to my website, and my contact information is there. And I also wanted to say that my book and my other books, too, all 5 of my books are available in multiple formats at Amazon and at Barnes & Noble. But if you purchase it directly from me on my website, you'll receive my autograph. And Stanton's, too, on the books that he and I wrote together.
That's right, because I happen to have one of those books with that exact stamp. So thank you so much for Kathleen. I really appreciate it. And for those who do go to MUFON events, I know Kathleen in the past has been doing seminars. So on occasion it might pop up again, I suspect. Right, Kathleen?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, cool. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to steer away from Facebook just because I don't like the power that they have over our data. I just don't feel comfortable with it anymore, and I don't like the manipulative aspect of Facebook. That said, I have all these people that I'm connected to out there, so it's going to be a long time before I transfer. But if you are considering getting off of Facebook too, what other alternative sites are you looking at? I'm really curious to see where you guys are headed to. So that's it. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you out there. I really appreciate it. Indeed, I'm grateful. I'm thankful to be on this program, to be hanging out with you. Thank you for calling in and asking your questions, because that's essential to this show. You're very much a part of this family as anyone else. So join us next week, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on KGRAradio.com, your official contact for the best in alternative talk radio. To find out more, go to KGRradio.com/paranormal now. Thanks to KGRA producer Race Hobbs. Until next time, live in the mystery.
Hold on so tight. Back and forth in my mind, leading conclusions I don't wanna find, 'cause I know it's not right. When I come home to you at the end of the day, just to avoid change, one more night, just for one more night.